Innovative Teen Pregnancy Prevention Programs, or iTP3 as we often refer to it, is a project made possible through funding from the Office of Adolescent Health to promote and support the development of program-based teen pregnancy prevention innovations. This 5-year project is actually a joint collaboration at Texas A&M University between both the Center for Community Health Development and our Department for Health and Kinesiology. This partnership is actually a great combination because together we bring experience with implementation and evaluation of teen pregnancy prevention programs, as well as providing capacity building assistance to communities and organizations. This particular project is just one of many within our broader OAH initiative to prevent teen pregnancy. As many of you already know, OAH awarded funding this past summer through 4 separate grants. These grants include supporting the replication of evidence-based programs in high-need communities, providing capacity building to support program replication, rigorously evaluating innovative approaches, and finally, the grant funding our project, which is supporting and enabling early innovation to advance adolescent health and prevent teen pregnancy. We are actually one of 2 grantees who received this innovation funding. The other grantee is the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. While our project is focused on program-based innovations, the National Campaign receives funding to support technology-based innovation. If you haven't heard about their application for funding yet and you are interested in technology-based innovations, I encourage you to check it out. Their project is called Innovation Next, and their application is due at the end of this month. In addition, if you're curious about OAH-funded work that is already going on in your state or community, you can find a full list of grantees on the OAH website. And finally, before we proceed any further, I'd like to provide the disclaimer that although funding for the iTP3 project has been provided by the Office of Adolescent Health, the contents of this presentation are solely the responsibility of the Texas A&M University and do not necessarily represent official views of the Department of Health and Human Services or the Office of Adolescent Health. So now that you have a little bit more background information about the funding for our project, I'd like to introduce you to the rest of the iTP3 project team. Ken McElroy and Kelly Wilson are co-principal investigators for this project. I will be serving as the program director. Whitney Garney is our evaluation director. Angie Alanis is our technical assistance director. Kat Katanak is our communication coordinator, and Kristen Garcia is our evaluation manager. And you can learn more about us by visiting our website. In addition to our core team, we also have 2 fantastic advisory committees that have helped with the development of our application. They also will assist with the application review process and play a key role in future technical assistance provided to our innovators. The first is our National Advisory Committee, which is composed of nationally recognized teen pregnancy prevention experts. And the second is our Innovation Advisory Committee, which is composed of our target and subject matter experts. Lastly, I'd like to recognize that our OAH project officer is Nicole Bennett. So during this presentation, we will review key dates and funding information as well as funding criteria, including what we mean by innovative programs, specific priority target populations we are interested in program serving, and eligibility based on where your program is in the development process. We are also going to discuss 4 specific expectations for funded innovators and how they can apply. I also want to point out that this presentation will provide a review and hopefully a little bit more clarity regarding more information that is provided on our website under application information, as well as within our request for application document. So please make sure that you read thoroughly through this information before applying. By the end of this presentation, we hope that you have a better understanding of our project and the application process, but we have reserved the last part of our presentation for any additional questions that you might have. Questions can be submitted using the chat box on your screen, and please make sure when you submit a question this way that you are able to send it to everyone so that those that we have monitoring questions are able to see what you have submitted. You can also submit questions after the presentation online through our website under the Connect feature, as well as by sending me an email. And our email address is here on the screen, but for those of you just joining by phone, that's itp3@tamhsc.edu. While we'll do our best to answer all of your questions today, we do anticipate that there might not be enough time to answer all of the questions, or some questions that we might need to discuss further as a group or with our OAH project officer before responding to. However, all questions and answers from today and those received in the future will be posted to our website under Frequently Asked Questions. Okay, so here are a few key dates that I'd like to highlight. The first is letting us know that you're planning to submit an application. You can find the Intent to Apply link under the Apply for Funding section of our website. This step requires very little information from you, and it's not an actual requirement for applying, but it will be very helpful for us when planning for the review process. The official due date for the iTP3 application is February 15th, and we do plan to notify those who have been selected to receive funding by March 18th. The projects themselves will actually begin May 1st. So through this funding opportunity, applicants can apply for up to $100,000 to support the development of their innovative teen pregnancy prevention program, and funding is available for 12 months. Indirect costs are actually built into this amount, so $100,000 is the total maximum that an innovator will be awarded. From this first round of applications, we will select somewhere between 14 to 20 innovators to receive funding. And for those who might not be ready to submit an application just yet, we do plan to release applications annually in December of 2016, 2017, and 2018. Although the number of applicants awarded funding will be less in future funding years, approximately 7 to 10 innovators per year. As we will discuss in a little bit more detail later in this presentation, applicants can actually apply for and receive funding across multiple years. Lastly, we want to point out that we welcome applicants from across the U.S. and from a variety of backgrounds. Preference will, however, be given to those who have experience in teen pregnancy prevention, working with their program's target population, or with developing innovations. If you're unsure of your eligibility, you can find a detailed eligibility list on our website, or feel free to send us an email. We would also like to mention that we recognize that some of you might already have funding from OAH. If this is the case, you are still welcome to apply, but it must be to support the development of a project not already supported by OAH. So now it's time to dive into what makes this funding opportunity so unique and exciting. As many of you already know, while we have continued to see a reduction in teen pregnancy rates, there is still room for improvement, especially for high-risk and vulnerable teens. In addition, although we have been incredibly fortunate to have federal funding available for the past several years to replicate evidence-based teen pregnancy prevention programs, there are limited programmatic options for some youth. And lastly, many of the teen pregnancy programs follow a similar format. They are often curriculum-based and focused on change at the individual level. Considering all of these factors, iTP3 is looking for innovative teen pregnancy prevention programs that are targeting high-risk youth who are underserved by our existing evidence-based programs. Our challenge to you is to be creative, be bold, and be new, to think outside the box. We are truly looking for something different than what we have already have available. So in an effort to attract a diversity of innovations, we have placed as few limitations as possible on what iTP3 funding will support. The first important point to emphasize is that programs are not restricted by certain implementation settings. We believe that programs should be implemented in the setting or settings that are most important and appropriate for the target population and the focus of the program. In addition, programs can target more than one population, including populations who are capable of influencing change for the adolescent target population. We anticipate that this is one area in which you might have more questions, so I have a few very simple examples for clarity. iTP3 funding would support an innovative program focusing directly on youth in foster care, as well as a program that focuses on both youth in foster care and the professionals who work with these youth to try to reduce teen pregnancy. We are also open to programs that might not serve youth directly, but will ultimately help prevent teen pregnancy for one or more high-risk adolescent populations. An example of such a program might be one focused on working with healthcare providers to increase access to contraceptives for teens. Considering most teen pregnancy prevention programs target change at the individual level, our project is also interested in programs targeting change at different intervention levels. We welcome the submission of individual, interpersonal, organizational, policy, as well as system-level change programs. Examples of these different types include innovative programs focused directly on youth, families, schools, neighborhoods, policy change, and even addressing norms. Lastly, we will also support programs that incorporate technology as a support feature of the overall program design. Unfortunately, we cannot support programs that are solely technology-based. But as I mentioned earlier, if this does describe your innovation, I would encourage you to explore the National Campaign's Innovation Next application for funding. Regardless of the innovation's features, we do want all programs to be positive, safe, supportive, and healthy for all who participate. The specific priority populations for iTP3 funding include older teens ages 18 and 19 years old, racial and ethnic minority youth, teens living in the southern U.S. and in rural areas, youth with special needs, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning youth, victims of intimate violence, family units with an adolescent child, youth in foster care or the juvenile justice system, males, adolescents who have been pregnant or caused a pregnancy, who have given birth, who are currently pregnant or are currently parenting. I want to point out that your program is not limited to only populations that are included on this list. As we will discuss later, regardless of the population you propose to serve, you will need to provide a clear justification regarding how the population is at risk for teen pregnancy and why your innovative program is needed. For the reasons we discussed on the previous page, the age range for an innovations program is not restricted as long as preventing teen pregnancy among a high-risk population is the program's ultimate focus. Lastly, I want to emphasize that we want a program's target population to be involved throughout all phases of program development. To us, this is a critically important component of creating an effective program. Too often, the target population involvement is an afterthought that even happens at all, especially when it comes to youth programs. And we believe that partnering with youth throughout the development process is key to building the next generation of teen pregnancy prevention programs. We are interested in working with innovators across all stages of program development. And the easiest way for us to describe the spectrum of eligible programs is to separate program development into 4 stages. This begins with programs that are ready to transition into, this begins with promising ideas that are ready to transition into a program, followed by preparing programs for implementation, then piloting programs and collecting data, and finally preparing programs for rigorous evaluation. This, however, is where our funding stops. We are actually unable to support rigorous program evaluation. Innovators will be expected to complete various program development activities throughout their funding year, depending on where their program is in the development process. You can find a description of these expected activities on our website, as well as within our request for application document, which is available for download on our website. Please know that you are not limited to only these activities that we described. We have only provided a few key activities that must be accomplished. We are also aware that programs might not fit neatly into one of these 4 stages, and we recognize that some programs might have reached their current stage without accomplishing all of the previous expected activities. In this case, innovators will be expected to complete those uncompleted activities prior to advancing the development of their program. So as a result, we'd like applicants to consider where their program is in the development process, what activities have already been completed, and what activities are feasible to accomplish within the budgeted 12-month period. The time it takes to progress through these activities will be program specific, so we have not placed firm boundaries on what innovators must accomplish within their 12-month period. And we do not expect for a program to move through all 4 stages within one funding period. As I mentioned towards the beginning of this presentation, innovators can reapply for future funding to continue the development of their program. For example, an innovator who is awarded funding in response to this application for an innovative idea might accomplish enough activities to have their program ready for implementation. This innovator can then reapply for funding in response to next year's application and receive an award to pilot test their program. And lastly, this same innovator could even reapply for a third time to receive funding to prepare for rigorous evaluation. There are a few expectations associated with receiving iTP3 funding that we would like everyone to be aware of and consider during the application process. Our team is looking forward to partnering with innovators to identify capacity building assistance needs and preferred training formats. Capacity building assistance will be provided for both the organization as it relates to the development of your program, as well as specific to your innovation. In addition, innovators who receive funding to pilot their program will need to provide all program materials for review by our team as well as by OAH prior to program implementation. OAH requires that all programs be medically accurate, complete, age-appropriate, as well as trauma-informed, culturally and linguistically appropriate, and inclusive of LGBTQ youth. Innovators will need to revise program materials based on this review prior to implementing their program. The third funding expectation is that innovators will participate in a joint evaluation process. This will include submitting performance measures on a monthly basis and participating in evaluation activities related to their innovative program as well as the overall grant program. Lastly, innovators will need to obtain approval from an institutional review board if applicable. We will work closely with our institution's IRB to determine if IRB approval will be necessary for each program. Now that we have reviewed the specifics of what iTP3 funding will support, let's talk about the application process. To appeal to a broader range of applicants, we created two different methods in which applications can be submitted. The first is an online application in which applicants will respond to questions individually through separate text boxes. And the second is a traditional request for application in which questions are answered in a narrative format and not restricted by the text box boundaries. It is really important for me to emphasize here that the questions do not differ between these two formats. It's only the method in which an applicant responds to these questions that differs. Both the online application questions and the RFA are available for download on our website under our Apply for Funding section. We encourage applicants to explore both formats before starting the application process, then choose the one that works best for them. Although there are two options, an application should only be submitted using one of these two formats. Online applications are submitted electronically within the website, and applications submitted in response to the RFA will be submitted electronically as a PDF to the iTP3 email address. Regardless of format, applicants will respond to a series of questions related to how the program is innovative and why it's needed, who is the target population, and how they have been and will be involved in the development process, and the potential for the program to make a significant impact on teens and the field of teen pregnancy prevention. We also want to know more about the specifics of your program approach and design, including where you are in the development process and what activities have already been completed, proposed outcomes for the program's characteristics, as well as the development activities you propose to accomplish within the 12-month funding period. Applicants will also enter this information into a work plan template that is available for download on the website. In addition, there are questions to guide your description of how the project will be managed, challenges and risks associated with the project, partnerships and collaborations to support the project, and key personnel. Applicants should also complete a budget and budget narrative using the Excel template provided on the website. And lastly, appendices can be submitted in support of your application. Applicants will be reviewed based on the content I broadly described on the previous slide, but you can find a detailed description of our review criteria on our website as well as within our RFA. We also want to emphasize that we know the level of detail an applicant can provide for each of the application components will vary based on the program's current stage of development, and this will be accounted for in the application review process. And I think the only other thing to mention before opening up for questions is we do have a date that we'd like everybody to hold as potentials for us to be able to contact you and ask further questions. That would be March 9th and 10th. Those that make it further along in the application process might need to be contacted for a few additional questions, but it isn't something that we do not plan on contacting everyone who does receive an award. It's truly just for a few follow-up questions. So again, those dates are March 9th and 10th. Okay, so that completes our review of the application information, and now it is time for your questions. Please feel free, if you haven't done so already, to submit a question using the chat box that's on your screen. And as a reminder, you can also submit questions using our website or by email, and we'll just take a minute to see if there's any questions that have come in. Let me see if I can check from just my view here. Okay, we do have a few. Yeah, so we have one.
We have one question that has come in. It is, in the proposal, would you like to see plans for a project that will last a possible 5 years, or keep it very contained for 1 year? We have the responder to this question coming closer to the phone so everybody can hear.
It's sometimes helpful to provide a brief overview of your long-term plan. That said, however, we're only funding projects 1 year at a time. And the maximal number of years is actually not 5, but more likely 4 years of funding. So we anticipate issuing between 10 and 20 awards this year, and about half that for each of the next 3 years.
The next question is, will you fund individuals or only organizations?
That's been something of an ongoing issue and discussions among us. The main issue with funding individuals is we have very few ways of holding individuals accountable. We will be more, I think we will be more likely in the review process to fund organizations, but we have not yet completely ruled out funding individuals, if you could take an uncertain answer.
Can you elaborate on your comment about funding technology-exclusive interventions? And I'll go ahead and respond to that one. Because OAH has funded 2 separate organizations, they have identified the national campaign as the organization that will focus on innovations that are focused on technology. So we will definitely consider programs or innovations that include technology, but we are not looking for it to be the exclusive purpose of the intervention. The next question is regarding IRB approval. Will we work solely with your IRB, or must we secure IRB approval from another entity?
Generally, what I'll say is that if you have your own IRB, or if you have access to an IRB, you certainly are free to use it. The difficulty we have, however, is that the Texas A&M IRB also has jurisdiction. So even if you go through your own IRB, there will have to be a re-review, if you will, or a shorter review by the Texas A&M IRB.
If an organization is funded in year 1, do they need to keep applying every year?
The answer is yes, because one of the things we'll take into account in looking at subsequent funding is their performance on the years that they've had the grant.
And the next 2 questions are actually the same, worded slightly different. Could an organization apply for this grant and the Innovation Next grant simultaneously? The answer is yes. Would you consider proposals that target a general teen population, i.e. high school students, but are innovative in other ways, for example, content and delivery modality, or do all programs need to be tailored to be population specific?
I would say we would entertain them, but you must justify why this is innovative. So again, we're placing a great deal of emphasis on innovative programs, particularly those that meet the needs of populations that are not well served by existing programs.
I think I'd just like to add to that, we really want to make sure that our programs are feasible and of interest for target populations, and that is something that we ask in the application itself, is for you to highlight how the program or why the program actually is needed. So just really keeping in mind when you provide that description, even though it's a broader population, I think you can give more information to help that be easier understood.
Another question is, can you please discuss the OAH joint evaluation a little bit more? What will that involve?
So there's two parts to our evaluation. One is at the innovator level, and we will be requiring that you collect some performance measures that we will in turn submit back to OAH. We realize that some of the traditional performance measures like fidelity and number of participants served may not apply to all of you. So we'll be working with innovators to create proxy measures in those cases. We'll also be tracking things like number of partnerships developed. Also, we will be looking at evaluation of our entire grant program, and part of that is the innovators' involvement. We will be looking at things like work plan and activities that you propose, as well as how well our capacity building assistance provided you with resources that you needed throughout the program. So there will be some measurements in terms of those activities.
Another question that has come in, is there a priority for collaborating with other agencies? There is not a priority for collaborating with other agencies. One of the priorities is being able to clearly identify that you will be receiving input from the target population or priority population that you will be working with. Another question is, can an organization submit more than one application to this funding opportunity? We have not set any restrictions on how many applications an organization can submit. Another question is, for those applying for innovators transitioning promising ideas into innovative teen pregnancy prevention programs, are expected to completely, sorry, we had a jump in the chat box. For those applying for innovators transitioning promising ideas into innovative teen pregnancy prevention programs, are expected to completely develop the program by the end of year one or partially develop?
I can do this one. We actually don't have specific expectations for how far you're able to develop your program. So no, we by no means expect for you to go through all of those phases of development and end up with a final product by the end of year one. That's actually something that's up to you and your group who's applying to determine how much you can accomplish within the 12-month funding period. And if there's remaining tasks, you could reapply for additional funding to continue the development.
But I would add that you must justify the activities within the year-long time period. So you'll have to explain in your application exactly what task you intend to accomplish and what the deadlines and timelines are within the year-long grant period.
Another question that has come in, can you explain the indirect rate allowed?
So many organizations have a federally negotiated indirect rate, which covers relief facilities and administrative costs. If you're an organization that has this federally negotiated rate, you would simply use that as your indirect rate. So, for example, some agencies may have a federally negotiated rate of 25%, and that's what you would use for your indirect costs. If you do not, you can actually calculate your facilities and administrative costs and include those direct costs in your application, in your budget. You just have to describe it in your budget narrative.
The next question is, should applicants avoid the typical evidence-based curriculum and evaluation formula to increase likelihood of receiving the award?
I'll answer this one. We really are looking for programs that are outside of the box. We have a broad list of evidence-based programs, and we are really looking for those that are a little bit different. So we're encouraging you to be creative, be bold, and be new.
And then, could a curriculum-based program be considered? Came in right after this question. So, Jen, you want to?
I don't think that we're closed off by any means to curriculum-based programs. I think your key word there is innovative. So we are excited to see those that are proposed.
Another question is, please elaborate on how you would like to see the LGBT community included in the program specifically. We do not have any specific standards set for how we are expecting to see the LGBT community, but we know that this is an underserved risk population, and that we just know that they are a target population that we would like to be served, but we are not identifying specifically how that needs to occur.
I'd go a step further and say that we don't require that every application address the specific needs of the LGBT population. We will entertain programs directed at LGBT populations, but we'll also entertain applications that are directed at a broader population or other groups.
The next question is, are you only interested in curriculum-based innovations? And the answer is no. And then another question, can you define innovative?
I think innovative in and of itself is a little bit difficult for us to define. We've had a lot of conversations around this, but really as it relates to our program and what we're hoping to fund, or to our project and what we're hoping to fund, is that it's different than those programs that are already out there. We are looking for programs truly that do go beyond that curriculum-based format and only target change at the individual level.
Given the request for innovative programs, must all curriculum be used be evidence-based? Actually, at this point, we do not believe that any of the programs that we would be funding would be considered evidence-based because none of them have gone through a rigorous evaluation.
I can reinstate that. And then just to add on, while we're waiting for any additional questions that might be given, we do, however, require that programs, when they're ready for implementation, go through a review, and that is because OAH requires that programs are medically accurate as well as age appropriate. So with that in mind, I think that that does, line up with this question regarding if they need to be evidence-based, research informed, and really looking at and keeping in mind those requirements that the material will need to be medically accurate and age appropriate.
We would also encourage applicants to include the target population or the target organizations or youth in the process of developing their innovative program. That will be part of the review process.
I think we'll just give a minute more to see if there's any other questions, since we're a little bit ahead of our schedule. And just as a reminder, if you don't have any questions to submit today, but you think of that perfect one, as soon as this webinar is over, you can submit your questions using the Connect feature on our website, as well as by email. And we will post all questions and answers to our website.
Thank you for participating with us. We look forward to talking with many of you over the next several months. Thank you very much.